wake up today to be average. So why are we living that way? I truly do believe that God wants us to be wealthy. God desires for us to live our best. You can have everything that you want in this life. You can have the money, the family, the marriage, the business, the car, whatever it is that you want. You can have it. Wealth is your birthright. You deserve to be wealthy. These are the secrets of a money mogul, the keys to living an abundant life. Hey moguls, welcome back to another episode of the Secrets of a Money Mogul podcast. Y'all, we are winding down. 2018 is coming to a close, and this is the perfect time to begin to reflect if you have not done so already. We're about 2 or 3 weeks out from 2019. And I decided to go ahead and record this podcast and just give you guys some questions that you should be asking yourself before the end of the year, just kind of to prepare yourself for the next level, to level up and kind of just close out the year strong. So before we get into that, I want to say that you can create the life that you want. You can. You don't have to wait for anybody. You don't have to wait for a spouse. You don't have to wait, for a parent. You don't have to wait for a child. There's nothing that you need to wait on. Everything that you need to create the life that you love, God has already placed within you. So I don't know who I'm talking to today, but if you are waiting on something, don't wait. Don't wait. And I know that the beginning of the year is a perfect time for people to kind of want to change their lives. They get momentum to kind of get started on something new. And if that's you out there, I don't care what the critics are saying. People roll their eyes at the new year, new me movement, but we are not worried about people. If you are ready to change your life, if you are ready to change your money, if you're ready to reach financial freedom, if you're ready to, live the life that you love, then go for it. Go for it. There's nothing that you need to acquire, right? So that's just a quick intro. Hello again, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jalesa, and I am your host. And I'm on a mission to help 1 million women reach financial freedom. And one of the amazing ways that I get to touch and inspire women is through this wonderful podcast platform. So today we're going to be talking about the 10 questions that you need to ask yourself before the end of the year. And I'm going to get right into it. So the first question that you should ask yourself before the end of the year, perfect reflection question, is what goals did I accomplish this year? What goals did I set out to accomplish that I actually did accomplish this year? I think that it's important that you write those things down first, mainly because in our reflection time, sometimes we can spend too much time on what we didn't do, that we don't celebrate the things that we actually did accomplish. This year, 2018, I was doing my own reflection, which for whatever reason was hard for me. And I think that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to record this podcast, because it's been a little hard for me to reflect on the last year. And I noticed that one of the things that I was doing was just focusing on all the things I set out to accomplish that I didn't accomplish. And it's like I kind of started going on this downward spiral where I was like beating myself up, not recognizing that there are so many things that I actually did set out to accomplish this year, and I actually did accomplish. In 2018, I gave birth to 2 babies, right? My actual physical baby, which is my daughter. I gave birth in January to my daughter. And then my digital baby, which is this podcast, which is something that if you've been listening for a long time, if you've listened to the first episode, you know that I feel like I have had brewing inside me for a very long time. So that that is something that deserves to be celebrated. Now, what you have to do is reflect on the things that you actually did accomplish, big or small, and celebrate them. Celebrate those wins that you actually did accomplish. Reward yourself, pat yourself on the back, do a, job well done kind of thing, because it's important for us to reflect on the things that we did accomplish this year. And that brings me to my next question that I kind of already mentioned, which is question number 2 that you should be asking yourself before the end of the year, which is, what goals didn't I accomplish? And I started with this question, which I realized was a mistake. And then I ended up flipping it and going back to saying, okay, well, this is what I did accomplish and I'm going to celebrate that. But now I'm in a better headspace to go back and say, okay, now what didn't I accomplish? There's several things I didn't accomplish this year. One of them being I did not hit my fitness goal this year. I was not committed the way that I needed to be committed. And I think I've talked about that on the podcast before, that is something that I am committing to, not just for 2019, but starting now. I'm making better choices so that I can make sure that I hit my health and fitness goal next year. But also, one of the things that I didn't hit this year was my income goal. I did not meet my income goal this year. And so it was one of the things that I had to write down in the goals that I did not accomplish. And reviewing that, I had to ask myself, why didn't I hit these goals? Why was I not committed? Why was I not disciplined enough to get up and do the things that I already know need to be done? It's not like I don't know how to lose weight, right? We all know that in order to lose weight, you have to eat less, exercise more, make healthier choices. There is no magic pill. There is no rocket science. There's nothing to it. No, nothing special to it, but you actually have to do it. You actually have to take the action. So I began to reflect on some of the reasons that I didn't take action. Some of the, what I would call, excuses that I made for myself. And I began to write those down and really reflect on those, because in order for me to make a different decision in 2019, in order for me to make sure that, I do hit my goals in 2019, I have to reflect on the reasons I didn't hit them now. And one of the things that I noticed is that, especially with my income goal, I did set a very, 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 very aggressive goal. And in order to meet it, I would have had to take very, very, very aggressive action in order to meet it. And I spent most of the year on maternity leave, so not to give myself an excuse, because I could, there are several areas I could have worked harder. I could have shown up more. I could have been more consistent. I know that sales and pitching myself is something that I'm working on. So, sales, if you're in business, sales is one of the things that greatly affects your revenue. I mean, like, if you're not selling, you're not making revenue. I meet so many business owners that have businesses, or they say they have businesses, but really what they have is a hobby, because they're not selling anything. They're like, oh yeah, I have this ideal where I'm gonna, help people. Help people become actresses or something like that. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up here. But you guys get what I'm saying. Like, they have a goal to help people, but they have no idea how they're going to monetize it. What's going to be the sales strategy? What's going to be the strategy to actually bring in revenue to the business? And if you don't have that, then you don't have a business. You have a hobby. And that's one thing that I had to recognize, because I do believe that God gave me a servant heart. He really did. And I really do, want to help and to see people win. But sometimes that can be taken advantage of. And I'm not doing enough sales in order to meet my revenue goals and take my business to the next level. So question number 2 that you should be asking yourself before the end of the year is, what goals didn't I accomplish? So that brings me to the next question, which is question number 3. And this is an important question, I think, to recognize. And it's, at what time during the year or quarter? I think that some of these questions actually need to be asked quarterly, because when I think back to January, it's like hard for me to even remember what happened that far back, right? So the third question that you should ask yourself before the end of the year is, at what time during the year or quarter was I most happy? At what time was I most happy? At what time was I doing something that gave me true bliss? At what time was I really enjoying life, right? And I think it's important to ask that question, because we need to do more of that. If there's something that brings us true bliss, that truly makes us happy, there is a reason for that. God has placed that on our heart for a reason. So we need to do more of it in order to really have the life that we love, in order to really enjoy our life. And it's funny because sometimes we overlook those things. We overlook the things that truly make us happy. We don't reflect on them enough, and we don't do them enough. And so we look at our lives and we're living a life that we hate. And it's because we're continuously doing things that we don't enjoy doing. We're continuously feeding things in our life that really we should have cut off a long time ago, because they're no longer serving us. And they're no longer making us happy. Maybe that's friends, maybe that's situations, maybe that's jobs, maybe that's clients. I don't know what that might be for you, but I know that there were things in my life that I could look back on this year and say that it wasn't making me happy. It was not aligned with my long-term goal. So now I want to focus on, what are the things that did make me happy? What are the things I really enjoy doing the most? What are the things that I really want to continue doing in 2019 and what I want to do more of? And for me, I spent a lot of time this year with family. I spent a lot of time with my husband and my daughter, and, with his family, and with movie nights and barbecues and Sunday football. I mean, we spent a lot of time just loving our family, just in the presence of our family. And I recognized that the first 2 years I was growing my business, I didn't spend that much time with family. I was so focused on my goal that I didn't do the things that I actually enjoyed doing, the things that I love. And one of the reasons I want to go, I wanted to go in business for myself, was to be able to have more time to do the things that I love. So in the event that that's not happening, then I'm no longer in alignment with my goal, and I need to reevaluate what I'm doing so that I can get back in alignment. Not to say that there's not times that we have to make temporary sacrifices. So when we're building our dream, it takes dedication, it takes discipline, it takes work. There's no way around it. Like, I can't just sit in a corner and dream up my dream life and expect for it to just be hand delivered on my doorstep. That's not how these things work. But there might be times where the actions that I'm taking are not in alignment with what I truly want, with what my goals are. So if I'm building a business that requires 100% of my time, but I'm saying that I want time freedom, that doesn't make sense. That makes no sense. Like, I remember one of my mentors telling me, like, clarity is so important. And one of the reasons that clarity is so important is because you don't want to lean your ladder up against a house and get to the top only to realize that your ladder is against the wrong house. So now you got to get down on the ladder. You got to move the ladder to where it should have been, and you have to climb all over again. And that's one of the things that we don't want to do. So I think it's very important to recognize, at what time during this year, at what time during this quarter, at what time during this month Was I truly at my happiest? Was I really in bliss? Was I really enjoying my life? And then how can you do more of that? And that brings me to the fourth question, which is the opposite of the question we just asked, which is, at what time was I least happiest? And I think it's important to recognize those moments too, because sometimes we can focus on, or there's this ideal that like you're supposed to be happy and optimistic, 100% of the time. But all of our feelings have a place. Anger has a place. Sadness has a place. I know there's like this animated movie. I cannot think of the name right now, of course. But in the movie, all the characters are trying to get rid of sadness. Like basically they're like, no sadness, you get away. We want this person to just be happy. And the more they try to shut out sadness, it's like the more the individual becomes sad, because they're like trying to block it off. So it's like it's making it worse, not better. And all of our feelings have a place. And I think that that's one thing that I recognized in my life. Like, no, I'm not meant to be happy 100% of the time. I'm a fairly happy, fairly optimistic person. But there are going to be times when I'm sad, or when I'm angry, or when I'm frustrated, or when I'm mad. And those are not necessarily bad times, but they are times for reflection. They are times to evaluate, what is it that is causing this? What can I do differently to eliminate it? What can I do differently to cause less frustration? What am I truly angry at? Am I truly angry at the situation? Am I truly angry at an individual? These reflection questions are so necessary. So necessary. And I think that just as important as it is for us to recognize when we are most happiest, it's very critical that we recognize at what time of the year we were least happiest. So that brings me to question number 5. And question number 5 is all about our most valuable asset. The one asset that we are not getting back. It is something we can never have back, and that's time. So what did I spend most of my time on this year? And it's funny because there's definitely probably a correlation between what you spent the most time on this year and what results you actually saw this year. So one of my mentors, he talks about the 2 E's, which is education and entertainment. So typically, if you are spending more time on education, and that's self-education, not just formal education. So I'm not just talking about going and sitting in a college classroom. I'm talking about reading books, listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, going to seminars, just searching for general knowledge that is going to make you a better person, versus entertainment. And both are necessary. You have to have times where you let your hair down and, go to brunch with your girls and enjoy life, right? There has to be entertainment and education, not just both, not just one or the other, right? But there has to be a balance, and what you spend the most time on will definitely show up in your results. So if you're an individual that is spending more time on entertainment, that's going to show up in your results. And trust me, you're not going to be hitting the goals that you should be hitting. And vice versa. If you are spending most of your time on education, it's going to show up in your life. It's going to show up in your business. It's going to show up in your career. You're going to begin to see more promotions. You're going to begin to see more doors of opportunity open up, and you actually, have the confidence and the knowledge to move forward with them. And that's because you're spending more time on education and less time on entertainment. And one thing that I noticed this year, I watched a lot more TV this year. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there was just certain shows that caught my attention. I know my husband, he's really big on watching TV, and before we got married, I didn't really watch TV at all. I was always in the books. I was always reading a book. I was always watching. YouTube really was my TV. Like, I love to sit and watch YouTube. But I noticed that this year I watched way too much TV. I will still say that I probably had more education than I did entertainment, but I will say that my normal entertainment to education ratio was a bit off this year, and it showed up in my results because, I've already talked about not meeting my income goal, and that could definitely have affected it. The fact that I was spending way too much time just chilling, watching TV, and not being disciplined enough to take the actions that are necessary to drive my business to the next level. So, that's one thing. What did you spend most of your time on this year? So let's talk about question number 6. And question number 6 through 9 is going to bring us into our financial questions, because as a financial expert, as someone who has helped people with money for years, that has been in the finance industry for years, that really wants to help people reach financial freedom, I cannot not talk about the financial questions. I think they're just as important as the personal questions, but you have to ask them both. And a lot of times the financial questions are the easiest for people to avoid. And it's easy for them to go year to year to year making the same financial mistakes because they're unwilling to confront, their true what's really happening in their financial life. And I've seen it over and over again with my clients. So number 6 is going to be, what was my spending like this year? And I know December is a hard month for people to really evaluate their spending, because I've seen it before. There are people who could have, very good spending habits for majority of the year. And then December is like everybody loses their mind and just goes crazy with spending, right? Because it's the holidays and they want to buy gifts and they want to make people feel good and all of that. And, there's a place for that, and you can definitely be prepared for that. I'm definitely not one of those, financial people who teaches frugality. Like, I don't believe in, I believe you should live below your means, but I believe that you should still live a life that you love. And if you are a person that has expensive taste, I believe that you should have what you want. Who says that you shouldn't have designer clothes or designer shoes or drive a nice car? I just believe that it needs to be within your financial plan. So you need to have the income to support it. Now, I don't believe that you should just be going into debt over labels. But if labels are something that you desire, that's something that's on your heart, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to be average, with wanting true abundance. There's nothing wrong with that. And I encourage women to ask for more, even more than they think they want. Ask for more. Not only does God want us to have more. You guys know I did a whole podcast on that. God wants us to be wealthy. Y'all go back to that episode if you need a refresher. But what was your spending like this year? Was it in your plan? Was it good? Did you overspend? Did you underspend? How much did you have left? These are questions that are important. How was your spending this month? What was your spending related to? And what I mean by that is that sometimes we can recognize trends in our spending. So if something traumatic happens to us in life, or an individual says something to us in life that makes us feel a certain way, maybe makes us feel inadequate, maybe demeans us, maybe we have a parent that talks down on us, and every time we talk to that parent, we notice a spike in our spending. We might notice a spike in our spending because we are we're trying to heal that wound with money. We're trying to fill that void with money, with stuff, with things, with material things. And sometimes those voids can only be filled by God. So it's like a self-sabotage mechanism. So definitely recognizing the spikes and the valleys in our spending plans throughout the year, and definitely taking time to review that is going to help you elevate to the next level in 2019, y'all. I'm just telling you now. So let's talk about question number 7, which is my question of the year. This is the one thing I've actually already mentioned it in this podcast episode, but how has my income increased this year? Sometimes we are waiting to go from like 0 to 6 figures or 0 to 7 figures. It's like we just expect this big spike in our income, especially as business owners. I meet business owners that are just starting out. They're like, yeah, I'm ready to make 7 figures. And it's like, okay, well, first you got to make 6, then you got to make multiple 6 figures. But I'm not telling you not to dream big, but if we focused on increasing our income 10% every year, just 10% every year, we would look up, and in 5 or 10 years, we would have a completely different lifestyle. And our income would be substantially different. So are you increasing your income at least? And I'm talking about a minimum of 10% each year. I know in corporate, they love to give you those, what do they call those 3% raises? I think that's pretty standard in corporate America, is the 3 to 5% raise. If you're at 3%, you're barely keeping up with inflation, which inflation is just cost of living increasing. And I'm sure you all see it around you. Cost of houses are going up. Cost of cars are going up. Cost of milk and toilet paper and everything is going up. It's called inflation. And it happens. And inflation's at about 2.5% each year. So your income needs to steadily be increasing 10% each year. So what did you do this year to increase your income? Did you apply for new promotions? Did you raise your prices in your business? Did you get more clients? Did you add another stream of income, a stream of revenue? Did you create another passive income product? What are the things that you did this year in order to increase your income? And if there wasn't anything done, what are you going to do to increase it next year? What are the things that you are going to put into place to really level up in your income area? Because a lot of this, it's not the single thing that can solve your financial problems, but it is one thing that can greatly help. It can significantly help. And being in this industry for as long as I've been in this industry, you can cut so many things, but you've got to increase your income in order to reach the next level, in order to reach financial freedom. There is no way around it. Whether you're investing in real estate, whether you're creating info products that are creating passive income, whether you're applying for new promotions that are eventually going to get you to the C-level suite, that are going to eventually get you to the top of the company, to management, to where you're really making good money. There's no way around it. So did you increase your income by at least 10% this year? And if not, how are we gonna make that change for next year? So let's talk about question number 8, which is the dirty D word. Dirty D word is debt. So how has your debt increased or decreased? And if you saw an increase in your debt, what was it from? Was it consumer debt? Were you charging too much on your credit card? Was it business debt? Were you investing in your business? And if that's the truth, if that's the case, you should see a correlation in your business income going up, and then you should begin to tackle that debt right away. Did you maybe purchase a home this year? That can greatly increase your debt. So even though you've acquired a new asset, which is the home, if you taken out a mortgage to get the home, now you have increased debt. So, did you go to school this year? What were the things that you did that possibly increased your debt? Or if you're on a debt freedom journey, what did you do to decrease your debt? How much did you pay off? Where are you from your goal? It's important to constantly be evaluating these numbers to keep you motivated, because you can look up and, years have passed and you're still in the same place because you're not evaluating where you are so that you can actually move forward. So how has your debt decreased or increased? And that brings me to question number 9, which is, how has your savings and investments increased or decreased? This is vitally important also. Maybe your savings or your investments did not increase because you're on a debt repayment journey. So you're following, one of the popular plans is the Dave Ramsey plan. And in his plan, he talks about, I think you save your first $1,000 and then you attack your debt till you're debt free. You don't save anything outside of that $1,000 until you're debt free. Well, debt free from everything, I think, but the house. So if you're following that plan, this number might not have increased for you, and that's okay because you're following a plan. Otherwise, if you're not following this plan, if you had a savings goal for 2019, did you meet it? Did you not meet it? Why didn't you? Is it back to question number 7 where we're talking about income? Has the income not increased? Or is it, the fact that maybe we weren't as disciplined as we should have been this year? Or could it be question number 8 that our debts increased, which increased our expenses and didn't allow us to really save the money that we really wanted to save? So that's question number 9. And don't avoid these questions, y'all. I know it's so easy. I believe I've talked about this on the podcast. If not, I talk about this all the time. There's different money personalities that you can have. And one of my money personalities was I was an avoider. I would just pretend like it didn't exist, just avoid the statements, just avoid the massive credit card debt, going up and up and up. Oh, when I was in school, let me tell you guys, the student loan debt, it's like I didn't even know how much I had taken in student loans until after I had graduated. Then I was like, wait a minute, what did I take that much? Because it was like every semester I'm just signing the papers and getting the money. I'm not paying attention to the numbers. So if you're really serious about financial freedom, if you're really serious about living a lifestyle that doesn't compare to others, about really not being average, about, having real cash flow in your life, real money coming in, real savings, real investment, being debt free. If you're serious about any of those things, it's important to reevaluate and pay attention to these numbers. And I want to hear from you guys. So as you guys begin to do this, as you guys begin to dive into these questions, these numbers, I want you to DM me on Instagram, or email me if you prefer to email me, or message me on Facebook. So, or we also have on the website, there's a Q&A page. It's called Ask a Mogul. So you can submit a voice message there or type in a comment there, because I want to hear how you guys are doing reviewing these questions. What's coming up from you? What do you need help with? Because that will help me craft content for 2019 moving forward. What is it that I can help you with? You guys know that I do offer coaching. I offer business, life, and wealth coaching because they are all correlated. So if you have a business and you need help with your revenue, your money mindset, the way that you view money, your relationship with money, I am here to help you. I'm here to help you. So you can apply for coaching on my website at mymoneymogul.com/work. If you're not ready for coaching, that is perfectly fine. Keep listening to the podcast, keep doing these exercises, and watch your life change. So that was question number 9. And that's going to bring me to the last and final question, which is, what is the one thing, guys, I said one, What is the one thing I need to focus on for 2019 that will change my life? What is the one thing? I think we all have one thing in our lives that if we just focused on that one thing, it would correct many issues in our lives. I know for me right now, the one thing for me is my business. I know that growing my business is going to affect every other area in my life. It's going to affect the time that I have with my family. It's going to affect the money and the cash flow that I have to give, to invest, to purchase more passive income products. So more, to purchase real estate, to do more passive, my goal is to have a completely passive business, in the next couple of years. So right now I'm working most of my business. But I've had employees before, so we're going back to getting a team of people who can help me, who can assist me. I'm also going to be offering some of those services to my clients so that, my team becomes their team. And that's how we're going to be moving forward in 2019, because what I really want is for people to have not just financial freedom, but time freedom, because time freedom is so, so, so important. It's so important that you have the freedom of your time to do the things that you love, that you have the freedom of your time to be with the people that you love, that you have the freedom of your time to do whatever it is that your heart's desire. So that's all I have for this podcast. I can hear my daughter waking up, y'all. So thank you so much for listening to another episode, and I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Secrets of a Money Mogul podcast. I know 3 to 5 people who could use this advice. So please share it with them. Share it on social media. Tag me in your Instagram stories, on Facebook. You can tag me on Instagram. It's @mymoneymogul. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Have a great day.